It was necessary to specify critical areas for our armed forces to hang on to, so this would not lead to the fall of other areas. And these areas are either important militarily, politically, economically, and for services.
Well, let's analyse that for you. Reda Al Mawy is with our colleagues at BBC Arabic. Are they actually on the back foot now?
Yes and no. This has been a good week for Bashar Al Assad, surprisingly, because of the Turkish intervention for the first time in the war against the Islamic State positions. But at the same time, the Syrian army is suffering a major setback. For a few months now, they lost the north province and city of Idlib, which is a strategic city. And by his admission, the Syrian army is not controlling the whole of the territory. And this is why he said they need to prioritize certain areas over others, and they're suffering a severe shortage of soldiers.
In the ebb and flow of this conflict, which seems to get more complicated by the week, by the month, surely the Syrian regime, I mean, it's not a volunteer force, is it? Surely it's conscripted. It's you, and you will go to the front line and fight Islamic State.
Absolutely. It's been known that it's a very hard system of conscription, even before the war. And people trying to dodge their way out of the Syrian army was known for decades. But now they're in this very severe shortage, and there's also the phenomenon of desertion. There are lots of Syrian soldiers and from within the clan of Bashar al-Assad who are deserting and either fleeing the country or fighting with his enemies. So yesterday he published an amnesty for all those who deserted, asking them to come back. So this speech is also seen by his supporters as a form of call to arms to protect the Syrian land. Otherwise, it's going to be, cut into pieces, and there is maybe a partition.
Do we know how many people are turning coats here and fighting against him? And if they are significant in terms of numbers, does that mean that he is under threat, potentially?
I mean, people are talking about thousands of soldiers leaving the army and tens of thousands actually not being part of the conscription system. So he asked Syrian people to enroll, and he said in his speech that during the last 2 weeks and the last 2 months actually there were more conscription. But this is actually causing him a lot of damage, because he said in this speech, we have the material, we have the weapons, but we are lacking the men.
Okay. Just very briefly, the world, the outside world, NATO, as we've just seen in the past 20 minutes or so, trying to get a handle on the Turkish authorities going after Islamic State, the Turkish authorities, fighter jets going after the PKK. Is that something that Bashar al-Assad wants, or is that something that he doesn't want? Because presumably, if it muddies the waters, that's good for him.
I mean, he's always been capitalizing on any sort of confusion on the land, on the ground, I mean. And this is actually, on the short term, is going to serve him. But on the long term, maybe this will establish zones of influence, maybe of the Turkish army or the Iranian army or other factions. But what he wants to know, what he wants to get, is an immediate support, and then he will think of the consequences later.
Reda, many thanks.